4th. And this is Chuck the Comic Guy. And I just swallowed water horribly wrong. So forgive me while I try to get my throat right here. So to start off the podcast, if anybody's curious as to any mix-ups about episode 9, I'm going to clarify that right now. Yesterday, I had come home, busy day. I hit the comic book store for a new comic book day, which I picked up a couple of Absolute Batman titles that I didn't have because I'm just trying to get that all in order. And I was just in a rush to get an episode in because I had a lot of things I wanted to get like on the podcast done. And I went ahead and just went with it and wrote all my notes down, which I write my notes down like a bad 10-year-old in elementary school. So forgive me if it just sounds all over the place sometimes. But anyway, I went into recording the episode and then I published it last night. It was just, it's not a long process. It's just kind of a tedious process. And during this morning, when I just decided that I'm just going to review it and just listen to it, and I did not like it at all. So for anybody curious that went on my social media last night or, well, on the June 3rd, when it was released originally as episode 9, I took it down. I strive for the best product or best podcast that I can make every time. And I always say I'm going to make a better podcast than one before. And if I couldn't listen to my own podcast just to review it and make sure everything sounded right, I don't expect anybody else to listen to it. So with that said, I could have sat there for 4 hours and cut and spliced and edited a bunch of weird mannerisms that I have when I speak and get rambling on. Or I could just recut it and redo it and just do it now on June 4th. So that said, and there was some things, background audio cues, things that just were kind of all over the place. So I apologize for that. It is June. We are in Pride Month. I want to thank anybody who's listening who is a member of the LGBTQ plus and or any additional letters community. Thank you for listening, supporting, commenting, anything. Thank you for existing. Thank you for your contribution to the comic book community as well. And I also wanted to include that as a list of, there are some fine creators, artists, writers that are they're part of our everyday lives in comic books. It's James Tynion IV, Gingora Tagame, Alison Bechtel, Noelle Stevenson, Tilly Walden, and Phil Jimenez, to name a few. There's, I'm sure, plenty of others out there. And I just wanted to acknowledge that they are part of the LGBTQ community. If you see their names in your books or anything that you're exposing yourself to reading wise or anything that you notice that their name is in, just know that their unique personality was a part of something, and they come from just it used to be a time when you couldn't be an LGBTQ member of community and get certain work or get certain recognition, and a lot of fear in coming out and being public about it. And now we live in a time and era where it's much easier to express who you are. And it's very important that that's what Pride Month is about, is to recognize that we all are just equal people together sharing this planet. We all should respect one another. We don't have to live in the Stone Age about it. We should just know that we all have flaws and pros and cons to us as people, regardless of our orientations or whatever we believe in, and we're never going to be perfect, but we are part of a unique species of people, really. I mean, just that we are so unique, and in the comic book community, it's definitely the true melting pot. I always hear that term thrown around, and I feel like it when you listen to certain things that happen in the world, you don't feel like that's correct, but the comic book community is truly a melting pot of people all making something awesome, and that's why we are an awesome community. So I wanted to make sure that that's emphasized to my intro, that just make sure that you are respecting the month that is recognized for, and for people that, whether you agree with it or not, they're still human beings. So let's just treat each other like human beings with great respect. And with that said, I also wanted to recap about some previous stories that were from the last episode, not the one I just destroyed and redoing today. But I wanted to touch base on the DC blackout, because it's basically come to a truce, or it's just stopped altogether. It was considered one of the shortest boycotts for anything that what I stumbled across, at least from a post on social media, that basically the DC boycott didn't last very long compared to most boycotts that are put out there. And I'm glad that our community can work and communicate with each other and find our way of reasoning together and work out our differences and move on to bigger, brighter things. That's a really awesome thing, that just a lot of things came out of it. A lot of things did need to be said. It's not to admonish that shouldn't have existed. Obviously, if someone feels a certain way about a comic book company or studio or how things are handled in the industry, we all have the right to speak our mind about it and express our concerns of what we feel could be better about it. And I think that's all the intentions was to make DC in this scenario a better comic book studio and brand, to help compete against other brands that are already well ahead of the curve in that. And it's not saying that DC isn't trying to maintain a certain standard for recognizing African American or Black characters or superheroes. It's just that they are already in this. They're in this mode of doing what they're doing with all the comic book lines they got out now, but it does leave them with a sort of way of thinking when they go and approaching new titles, that voices have been heard. So that also is incorporated into everything I've just talked about. I mean, the comic book community is awesome. And then the bricks and minifigs update. I did say in the last episode that the Mansell family was looking to recoup some of the money from the sets to help aid their father with some sort of medical debt. But that was actually something that was spread a week ago or so, when this whole thing started kind of taking off. And since then, it seems more or less that the money is actually just going to be used for the Mansell family and generationally handed down. Not that it's necessarily, it could be used for medical purposes or whatever purposes they do get. If they get the money for the sets, the whole story is just getting wilder by the day. Reckless Ben has been doing so many things and now putting himself in harm's way of litigation or criminal cases or charges against him by it seems like, Oregon and other police precincts. And he's all doing this for the Mansell families. So I give him a big round of applause for taking the time to dedicate this much effort to make things right. And I'm still in this boat with it now that a lot of people are in, where bricks and minifigs have just done so much damage to their own brand that it makes it hard to want to go and shop there, because you have to look at it in this perspective. If you had a comic book collection and you went to some sort of big chain of comic stores, or a one shop of a big chain of comic book stores, and then they took your collection for consignment and then they just walked off with it and you never saw the money or it again, and it was in the same value of what the Star Wars collection is valued or seemingly valued at, you would be in the same position and feel the same stress. And I would feel filthy about it, honestly. I would feel completely violated by a company that did that to me. I've been ripped off. I've been screwed over by just bad just business ethics or doings as a consumer. And it sucks because you feel like you want to go lawyer up, and then it feels like you don't really what are you going to do? And what if it doesn't work in your favor? Or what if they have a better law team? And that's basically what's happened to this Mansell family. Brian Mansell, the person who's been trying to get his father's either money or Legos back, has been going through 9 months to over a year of stress and PTSD and anxiety over it. And that's unfortunate for him. And that's just one facet of this whole thing. And without even getting into the logistics of who's right or wrong or all the legal jargon that's in the contracts or the business handlings of bricks and minifigs, it overall has left a taste in my mouth where I don't even want to buy a Lego set again. And that's a little bit overkill about the situation, but I'm not alone in seeing that other people are commenting the same thing. And it's unfortunate that Lego is getting now connected to this negative attention that's brought to them by a Lego reseller. But I hope that Lego does something in terms of making it right, whether they can produce if they have a storage room somewhere full of all these same sets that are on this inventory list and could just give it to the Mansell family, that would be awesome. And just say, here you go. You can keep them, you can sell them, do whatever you want with them. But these are all sealed. Here you go. They're even better what you had. If Lego can make something cool happen to be the light and shining warrior and battle of this whole thing, then that would be great. And that would make a whole huge difference. But it doesn't let go of the fact that, or the viewing opinion of, I shouldn't say fact because it's still going through litigation of some sort. The evidence that we've seen is probably the better term of how bricks and minifigs have handled this whole situation. It's unfortunate, and it just has me so, I feel sick for Brian Mansell and his family having to go through all this work to get justice and to see some sort of whatever they want to see out of it. And that's a quick update on that. And moving along, I wanted to talk about the Wolverine video game that has been making its rounds on social media and on YouTube. The trailer came out. Sony's producing the game. They're using the same studio, Insomniac Studios, that did their Spider-Man stuff. And now we're getting Wolverine, and it's going to be bloody and gory and crazy, and it looks really cool and fun. And I don't have a Sony. I'm an Xbox guy, and shame on me. If for anybody who listens now and says, "Oh, you Xbox person," it just started the whole feud between Sony and Xbox. I don't really care. I'm not even really that dedicated to Xbox either. It's just my streaming device, more or less. I don't even really game on it. And I've never played really any current Sony titles since anything past PS3. I've dabbled with some PS4 stuff, I think, once in a while. And I've never played any of the Spider-Man games. I hear they're all awesome. Anybody that plays a video game that's based on a character of either DC or Marvel, they've never really had a complaint about it. There used to be a lot of older games that came out back in the day for the NES and Super Nintendo that were really, really fun or really bad. And luckily, we've gotten past that point in video game history, and now we can get good titles and awesome graphics and true depictions of the characters and all the things you couldn't, the bells and whistles that come with an amazing platform that they put it on. And that's one of the things that's been going around. The other thing, too, is we've got our classified Hooded Cobra Commander for toy figure or for action figure collectors like myself, who has been trying to get back into the swing of things with G.I. Joe Classifieds. We now have a Hooded Cobra Commander that was released by Hasbro Pulse yesterday. I said this all day. I said this yesterday, but it's now today. June 3rd, they put it out, and it sold like wild. I mean, just crazy how quickly. That's how Hasbro Pulse does things in the toy community. They give you some sort of thing that you have to have now, and then they put it out there and you only get a tiny, tiny fraction of a window to get it when it's on pre-sale, and then it's gone. And you don't see it for until they do another batch of them, and then you have to hope that you get in that same small window. I dealt with this all through after post-pandemic when things were just crazy for action figures and everything collectible at that point. and you constantly are scouring the web or websites and checking Amazon daily for exclusives or anything that was an exclusive to anything. It's just wild how quickly people, I can't imagine how many they actually produce when they produce the initial launch. And then they go to Comic-Con with all this stuff too. And it just makes it even worse because nobody wants to have to fly to California to get some sort of $120 action figure. That just seems kind of absurd to me. You used to never have this in the toy market. You used to be able to just get, I mean, the only thing that was really fun about the toy market like this back in the 80s, G.I. Joe included in this too, is that you had your mail-away figures. Anybody that's a G.I. Joe figure collector from the 80s or currently knows about all of this. If you're my age, back in the day, you would get so many proofs of purchase that you had to cut out of the cardboards, and then you put an envelope and put a little shipping and handling fee of like $5, and then here comes this cool this action figure that would show up in the mail. I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, I think, whatever it took for them to just tease you with it, and finally you get it. And I think I got 2 figures from the 80s line that way back in the day. I know one of them was Super Trooper. I think that's who it was. The one that had the shiny helmet, and he was just basically like a repaint of someone else. And then I might have had one of the ninjas. I know there's a mail away ninja. I can't remember if I did get that one. I think I only got one mail away, if I'm being completely honest. And we are now getting classified Hooded Cobra Commander. And for anybody who needs a history lesson on Hooded Cobra Commander, when you say hood or hooded and you use it on an action figure, it tends to get viewed in a pretty negative, it doesn't take well to certain markets, I guess, because people hear that hooded figure and they associate it to a lot of bad things, unfortunately. And the look of the hood, it other than if it was painted any other color, it's obviously blue because of the color of the figure, but it doesn't look right if it were painted differently. I'll just say it that way. And so that's how the marketing department and people, just random people, looked at it. It was a kind of a tone deaf way of portraying Cobra Commander. So they went to the helmet style, and then that stuck around for quite a while. They brought the hood back in the 90s again for a minute, and I thought the hooded look was really menacing. And that's another thing they tried to say, it was too scary. It kind of looked a little too overdone for a villain, I guess, like in the scare factor of things. And I just think that there's so many collectors that want the Hooded Cobra Commander in their collection. They will make their own designs of it with 3D prints or resin or whatever. And there's so many people that have mocked one up or done their own custom G.I. Joe figure. That's a huge thing in the G.I. Joe classified collectors market, is the custom figures as well. And so many people were making custom Hooded Cobra Commanders to put on a random Cobra Commander body or one they mocked up. And now we get it. It comes with a throne. Honestly, it's only $69.99. That's a pretty good deal for what you're getting here, especially considering the amount of desire for this figure. And if it hits, I don't even want to say what it's going to go into in the resale market, because it's going to go double that until sales kind of taper off. But that's how things kind of work with the class. Any action figure really that's of high demand, it just goes to eBay or somewhere else and it just takes off. And I want to get this figure for my collection. I feel like I'm going to have a hard time doing that. Hopefully they put out enough of them, or they offer them elsewhere, like on Amazon or Big Bad Toy Store, to get one, just so I can add it to my collection of Cobra Commanders. But for classified, G.I. Joe classified collectors like myself and any action figure aficionado who wants something cool and unique, that is in the market now. That's a new thing, or just got announced yesterday, or released yesterday, I should say. Going along to what I want to talk about, I want to have a discussion about AI. It's a very weird thing now that we live with, is AI. And for people who don't know, artificial intelligence. So clear that up. AI being this super engine of things that just is supposed to be the smartest thing in the world. I remember they were doing Jeopardy kind of against AI of sorts. It was more like the computer program that knew how to do Jeopardy and it would always win. And that's just basically evolved ourselves into AI now. And there's a lot of people that are very critical of it, as myself. I'm really hit or miss about it. I don't know how to approach whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And it's a tool. And I'm not going to hide behind anything and saying that I use it for my stuff. I mean, I use it for my social media stuff all the time. I dialed up my logo to be more themed for Pride Month with it, and the original logo was made by AI, and AI just you just type something and there it is. I also have been trying to use it for other things that I want to use on social media, and I know it gets a bad rap, and I say that knowing, yeah, deservingly so. AI, and just like most technology anyway, now we live in this whole grid of technology. We live on the cloud. We live with server rooms and computer labs and everything else. And all this stuff uses energy. It uses resources. That's the huge downside. I feel like that will hopefully get under control somehow. I feel with the innovations we've come from the last 50 years, how anybody could think that burning up all our resources for something that's just really a luxury to us makes sense. Someone's going to come up with something. They've got to. We are already shy on a lot of resources. We're already worried about how our grid is designed. We got to worry about the amount of electricity consumption, things of that nature. And AI and all these things that we're incorporating into new technology is just going to basically just completely consume all that. But I also think, as I had thought about this, as AI has been just kind of continually coming into our lives, I also think about it being like how the internet was, because I am 44 years old, almost 45. The internet height was the debut of the internet was in the 90s in terms of, I mean, it came long before that. It was conceptualized long before that. But the internet came into the picture for most that time's consumers in the 90s, and we all got the AOL discs, and we all got the 56K modems that were louder than anything else in your house. And it just became this norm at that point. And you had to pay the internet bill. That was the funny, wild thing about it, is here's the internet bill. How many minutes were you on the internet last night, little Billy, kind of thing. And now we have this just unlimited availability to it, and it's become a commodity. My child has to use it in school. Everybody is using it for something at work. It's a part of us now, and that's where AI is going to eventually become this thing that we all have to have. I think it's just inevitable. The internet was just a convenient way to do life and to not have to go here or there and make trips and buy stamps and mail out things. And if you needed to find something that you really wanted and you couldn't find in your general area, you go to eBay or you go to Craigslist or you go wherever, and you just stopped going places. The internet destroyed a lot of brick and mortar businesses because of e-commerce and online distribution at that point, or a lot of businesses just going to the World Wide Web. And AI is now becoming the replacement for work, for workers, for intelligence, for needing to have a degree to do this. Now AI can just do it for you. It's going to be our internet now. It's going to be the new norm. And that's, to me, I miss doing things with a little bit of struggle to it, because it kind of kept you, I like the term, it keeps you honest. It just, doing things a little bit more harder and doing things with some effort and work kind of makes you appreciate the amount of things that you kind of makes you appreciate a lot of things in perspective in general of what it takes to make things happen. You have to go to get stamps, and you have to go and get gas, and you have to maintain your vehicle, and you have to do, and you look at all these moving pieces that are part of that whole chain of things. And it makes you appreciate that we've come from a time where there was horse and buggy, and we all had, everything was rough. If you played the Oregon Trail, you died of dysentery pretty quick. And now we live in this world where, like, what's dysentery? What's all these diseases you talk about? We got way cooler, weirder diseases than that now. It's wild. And we we have to kind of embrace how technology is simplifying things, but then it's also doing all this kind of unintended damage behind it in its wake. And AI, from a perspective of the comic book community, I know the comic book community, the creators, a lot of people, just in general, mainstream media, from film, movie, TV, and everything, it's like they are totally against it, but then they almost feel like they probably don't realize they're even utilizing it 1 minute at a time in part of their projects or whatever. The comic book community is kind of almost as unique as maybe the tattoo community and other things of that nature, where it's a unique skill and an artistic skill. And even though AI can generate art, it can't generate the emotions behind that art. It can kind of fake it for some respect. But when you know that a person who is a creator that created a story, you kind of connect the dots to how the story may have been influenced by their own life. And when you go to a Comic-Con panel or some sort of any kind of unique thing where you're meeting the artist and hearing their take on things and their input out of said creations, that is the gold of that industry, is knowing that that's how original and unique and clever and way better than anything AI can generate from this just algorithm, essentially. So with that said, it's just tough because I don't think the comic book industry there's going to have to be some sort of thing where either whether I hate to say that, if sales start having an issue or the economy takes a huge complete flip on its back and really forces a lot of companies to rethink where their financing's at or their budgets are at for certain things. And I also look at it in the same regards that when you run anything and you're losing money to it, you have to trim the proverbial fat of it. So with a comic book studio saying that we have 50 unique comic titles out on the market right now, and we're not making all the rewards, or we're not making returns on those from the investment value. So now we have to cut budgets we have to start losing the low selling titles. And my fear is whether AI is going to compensate for that. And they say, well, we don't have to lose your title immediately because AI can create it for you in less than 2 hours or less. Who knows? I don't know. It depends on how they put that whole thing together. And that's kind of the scary thing, I think, is that for most comic book collectors, we worry that that's going to become the thing that we want to continue your series that you're so in love with, and it's your niche market that's for you selectively. So now we're just going to go ahead and find some way to work around having to pay people to keep it going into your hands, and we make money from it. And I don't even want to kind of talk about it that way because I fear that that's going to become saying that's accepting of it. But I also just want to make sure that this is the perspective and the dialogue that's being discussed about this, that we take all the different variables in play and think about how the best case and worst case scenarios can be for the comic book industry and the movie industry, because we've already seen what Marvel's had to do, Disney in general, overall, I guess, with cutting a whole bunch of jobs of a lot of talent. And I fear it's because they're going to be replaced. And if you think about it like this, it goes in. I don't want to talk politics. I really don't. I don't want to bring what is outside of the comic book community into this thing, but it's only for the level of perspective. We've got talks about data centers, flock cameras. We've got all these things that are being automated at our grocery stores, and every day, if you go to a Walmart, they're doing all digital pricing now. They're revamping all their stores. And unfortunately, I know how they kind of operate from a person to person kind of dialogue that I've had. They are doing everything they can to keep their profits high. And the same can be said for anybody who runs a business, especially when the economy and inflation starts going crazy. You try to think of any way you can try to spread your money around or spread that gap of how much you're losing to how much you're making. And so it's just kind of scary to know that we have to, I mean, we do have to do everything we can as comic book collectors or readers to keep our studios that we like well well funded so that we don't lose them or they don't sell out. But at the same time, I do think about it in the sense that everything can be replaced now just about with some sort of technology, fast food. You can at any grocery store, and then I mean, I was at the Walmart, and I'm sure it's any Walmart for that matter. I've been in a Walmart now where they don't have a guy driving a little or pushing a little Zamboni floor cleaner. It's just some robot. I mean, it's just nobody even made a big deal about it. I mean, I sat there and walked by it, and I had to just do a double take, and it just sits there and it recognizes when you're in its vicinity and just oops, and it just kind of goes off course. And that's insane to me because it's kind of the same things that you just didn't think were ever going to happen in the 80s and 90s when you'd see technology just be like created by a cartoon. And here it is. And now we talk about all these things that are related to, you can even like jokingly say the Terminator for that part. And now we do have to actually live in fear of, does AI become sentient? So that's a pretty weird thing to think about. And I get that we all feed into it somehow now because we don't even do it intentionally. All your technology, whether you're trying to interact with it in some way or not, it does its own thing. My Xbox at night without my knowledge is connected to a cloud and the internet, and it's going to do random things in my sleep. I learned that not too long ago when my internet bill was going wild. It's like, why am I charged more on my internet this year? Oh, your usage per data, because that thing's constantly running, whether it's on or off. That's just crazy. And a Nintendo would never do that. Back in the day, the Nintendo could barely work when you blew into the cartridge, let alone stay on and talk to the internet. And it's perspective. Getting back to the nuts and bolts here, AI is just, it's like I said, it's our internet. We're just going to have to accept it, but we're also going to have to kind of try to combat all the negatives that it brings to the market. Because the internet, we let that kind of just do its thing. And then now we know the internet's responsible for job loss and killing brick and mortar stores that couldn't keep up. It's known for a lot of internet exploitation. It's known for a lot of bad things that can happen between people. It's bad for having just misinformation and rhetoric and people that see something happens over here and they're all the way over here and now they go do something about it. And it's a really scary, the internet is more scarier than we give it credit for. And I feel, and I've always said that it does more bad than it does good, because anything that's bad that involves losing a life or anything damaging long-term to a person cannot be outweighed by anything good, in my opinion. That's just me. And I mean, you can look at the bright side of certain things, but that's still, if you could have prevented it by not having that tool and that resource, then what good did it really do? And you know there's just got to be statistics all over the place that say that, the internet is a bad thing, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without it, by producing content and putting it out there, and it's now in the skies of everything, wherever it floats around and lands in your phones and your tablets and whatnot. And that's just the trade-off, unfortunately. So AI is going to be that, and we have to just we have to design better guardrails, learning from our internet experience to know that we don't want it to completely just let itself go without any kind of recourse. We got to make sure it's monitored properly. We got to know that it's not going to do any bad and just only good. But that's all subjective, of course, based on what you think is bad and good and how it's used. So this is my new episode 9. Thank you for bearing with me. And again, my social media is Chuck the Comic Guy, TikTok, YouTube, Substack, which, going back to the DC blackout story, I did publish something the other day about the DC blackout on Substack before, of course, it ended. So I'll give myself unintended credit for ending the blackout. No, I'm just kidding. It was just a lot of things I missed points on with my podcast about the blackout initially, and I wanted to kind of also touch base on a lot of things that I missed regarding that on that Substack, and also find a good reason to use Substack too. YouTube, TikTok, Substack, Instagram, and Spotify. Chuck the Comic Guy. Won't be anywhere else other than those 5 platforms. And until next time, I will be trying my best to make the best podcast week to week. See ya.
Let's cut out of here.